Now, before we get into the current storm, Hassanen, of accusation and misinformation, can you take us back to the beginning? What is the historical genesis of anti-Somali sentiment, especially in Kenya? And how did these early attitudes evolve into the narratives that we are seeing today? Hassanen.
I think historically you have to go back to how it started, and most of the African countries, all of us who went to school and learned geography in Africa, you learn about colonialism and how people were divided because of unimaginary borderlines that cut communities. And sometimes people had differentiation of negotiations where a piece of land was taken from one area to the other area, and where there was a regulated conversations between nations that one day they will have a form of a referendum of some sort. Now, if you look at historically where the claims of the land of Somalia, it goes all the way to the Kenyan side where the Northern Frontier District is. On the Ethiopian side, it covers the Ogaden region. On the northern side, it covers the Djibouti area. All those areas are known as the Somalis. If you look at the Somali flag, you will see that it has a star in the middle. The conversations on the Somali nationals is that star represents the five regions, the region where currently is Djibouti, the region in Ethiopia known as Ogaden, the region in northeastern frontier, Mandera, all the way down to Tana River side, and also the southern side of Somalia, and the northern side where it's currently known as Hargeisa. Those are known as the five corners of Somalia. Now, if we go back, we'll remember that we talk about, colonialism. How did it start at the Berlin Conference? All those things divided communities. If you go on the northern side of Kenya, you can see the Oromo, Orma, or Rendile have been divided with the borders between Kenya and Ethiopia. On the north and western side, you can find regions where there's the Dinka, the Gambela folks who are divided and put between Kenya and Ethiopia. And you can find cross-border conversation. A good example is Moyale, Kenya, Moyale, Ethiopia, where same individuals related through generations are divided by a border that you don't even need a passport sometimes to walk from one side to the other side. If you go to the Western Kenyan side, you find the Teso that are found in Ugandan side and the Kenyan side, and all of that plays into how Kenya came about from 1963 to the Shifta Wars, where, there were folks in the Somali region that said, we want to be reunified with Somalia, to where the previous administration started to make sure they find out who really is the person that stays in that region so they can earn to get that ID. And I don't know if any of you remember, but back in 1980s in Kenya, if you remember, you had to have going through a vetting process and get through some form of a red card for you to get the ID. Not as easy as it is today, So all those plays into part in how we are very divided in terms of like an imaginary borderline that, and then what also caused problems is the civil wars that happened, outside Kenya. You can see the civil war in Somalia, the civil war in Ethiopia, the civil war in Uganda, the civil war in South Sudan. All of those played a role in how we tighten our grip, because we want to make sure Kenya becomes a form of a safe haven for their population. So we're safeguarding people from coming in. So we'll create some kind of policies that really weed out, communities that we don't want them to come and have a fight on this side of the land. So that's where most of the conflict came about. If you look at historical facts, those are the things that, happened. Even when there was a war between Tanzania and Uganda towards Mwanza area, if you guys remember, in the 1970s between Idi Amin and Milton Obote. And, you wonder, how do I know all of this? Because my father actually married my mom in Kampala in 1965. So we consider ourselves like the East African kids being born from different regions. And that's how we know the political context. And we are attached to politics from Uganda, from Kenya, from Tanzania, from Somalia, because all of us are intermarried. My siblings, I'm a second youngest of 12. And You have individuals that are married in Tanzania, married in Uganda, married in Somalia. And so we get that connection in all these regions.